Hi guys, welcome back. This is part 3 of the greatest mini survival tin ever created. And in part 1, I went over what's in this kit. In part 2, I went over all of the uses for the emergency blanket and the Fresnel lens. And there's quite a lot of uses for both of those things, maybe ones that are obvious, but then did you know that you can turn the entire kit that I've given you into a solar oven? So watch part 2 in case you haven't and you would like to know how to do that. But anyway, we're going to come back and look at some more in this survival tin and look at all the different things that you can use some more of these items to do. Okay, so let's start with the reusable tinder. Okay, so this is a piece of fiberglass rope. In and of itself, it is not flammable. But when you put some kind of flammable liquid in this baggie, suddenly this becomes a really good reusable tinder that will burn for several minutes, depending on what liquid you put in here. So I would recommend putting something either alcohol-based or oil-based. My two biggest recommendations are either hand sanitizer or citronella lamp oil. And the reason is because, well, originally I thought you could use the hand sanitizer. If you filled this baggie with hand sanitizer and then you get a cut or something, you need to sanitize it, you might be able to put some of that on there to heal it. However, I would not recommend using hand sanitizer to sanitize anything because I don't know if you can see, but there's a lot of little fibers in this fiberglass that come out. So especially if you get a cut and you want to sanitize it, I would be better if you just sanitized it with a hot stick or something. But you know, you might get little fibers in your cut if you use hand sanitizer for that use. The reason I'm recommending it is not so much the double use of the hand sanitizer, but because everyone has hand sanitizer. And it works quite well. If you fill this baggie with hand sanitizer and you take the fiberglass rope out, you will have a fire for several minutes, up to 5 minutes with hand sanitizer. Maybe more around 3, depending on how saturated you get this rope. Anyways, I would more recommend citronella lamp oil. And we're coming on the end of summer, so you may be able to find this for sale now that bug season is over. But I would recommend citronella lamp oil because lamp oil burns a little bit longer than alcohol-based. And also, if you're in a survival situation, you don't want to get citronella lamp oil on your skin, but I would put my paracord bracelet on. Here, this baggie, this is my reusable tinder that I've used several times. This has lamp oil in it. I would just put some of this on the outside of my paracord bracelet and then make a mosquito bracelet out of this. You could also put some of it on the outside of your clothes and that will keep mosquitoes away as well. But my main reason for recommending the lamp oil is the fact that it burns so hot and it will burn for 5 to 6 minutes with lamp oil. All right, so let's talk through how you're gonna do this. So what I would recommend is, first of all, if it's a sunny day, don't use your Ferro Rod and your reusable tinder. I would only use this for wet conditions. And the reason is because it is highly flammable. If you get sparks on it, it will catch fire. It will burn very hot for 5 or 6 minutes, which is enough time to kind of dry out some of your tinder for it to catch fire. But during a sunny day, I would start all my fires with the Fresnel lens and save on my fuel in this baggie. All right, so let's pretend like it's wet conditions or whatever. This is kind of the best way, I think, to start a fire. Okay. Even though this will burn for 5 to 6 minutes, I would recommend not letting it burn completely out because the sooner you can extinguish it, the sooner you'll be able to use it again to start another fire if you don't deplete all of the fuel that's inside it. So what I would do is pretend like I'm taking it out of the baggie. So you want to take it out of the baggie and I would put it in the lid of the tin and keep this keychain part sticking out. I would light it with the Ferro Rod, and then I would start putting all my tinder on top of it. Once the tinder and kindling has caught fire, I would take a stick and pull it out of the fire and extinguish it. Blow it out as soon as possible, and that's going to preserve the fuel that's still inside the cord that hasn't burnt up yet, and then I would stick it back in the baggie to resaturate. So let me show you a little video of what that kind of looks like. All right, so in this video you see I'm taking the fiberglass out, and I'm being very careful with that baggie to preserve the liquid that's still in it, because it's going to go back in there and resaturate when this is done. And then I'm lighting it with a lighter, and you want to just keep lighting it until it'll catch. It'll catch, but there we go. All right, so it catches and it burns very hot, very fast, and it burns a lot. So if you started putting kindling on top of that, it's all going to dry out nicely and start catching and burning. And then you see it's very easy to extinguish it. All I have to do is blow it, and it blows right out. You'll see in a second there. You just blow it out, and it still has some fuel still retained in it that I was able to light it again and start another fire without even putting it in the baggie. But if you put it in the baggie, it'll resaturate. And I haven't added any more fuel to this baggie since I made that video, and I've started a few more fires. So you see, as long as you don't dump and spill all that fuel in there, you can start many, many, many fires with this. All right, so that's really cool. And something else about the baggie itself, just like the baggie I showed you in part 2, you can start a fire if you fill the clear baggie with water and then twist it. I think I showed you that. Yeah, like this. You can do the same thing with the reusable Tinder baggie. So just in case for some reason you lose your reusable Tinder or whatever, don't lose the baggie, because you can use it as a magnifier to start fires with in and of itself. All right, then the next thing, oh, one more thing is, if you happen to be in a long-term survival situation and you deplete all of the fuel in your baggie, you can use tree sap. So tree sap is also flammable, but you could rub tree sap on this fiberglass rope and you could start fires that way as well. So that will work too. And okay, so now the next item is the Paracord Bracelet. In video number 1, I already told you a lot of these things, but I'm going to go into more detail with what you can do with this. It is 9 inches in circumference. Is that the word? It'll fit up to a wrist that's up to 9 inches long. It contains 3.8 yards of paracord, so just over 11 feet. It is 7-core paracord, so if you cut pieces off, you can use the core, you can use it for fishing line, as I demonstrated in part 2, and you can also use it for making snares to catch small animals. You can use the paracord itself to hold shelters together. In part 2, I showed you the best way to use an emergency blanket as a shelter by tying the corners to a tree and to the ground. You can use the paracord to secure that. You can also, if you don't like the length, you can adjust it down, but I would recommend keeping the whole thing intact until you need to use it, and that way you have all of the length of the cord together until the needed time. All right, and then coming to the latch, I've shown you this before, but it does have a working compass. It has a really loud signal whistle. It has a little knife on it. And this knife can be used for making feather sticks to start fires. It can be used to cut the paracord in case you misplaced your other knife that is included in the kit. But you can use this to cut your paracord. There's a little bit of self-defense. If somebody attacks you, I mean, it's not going to do a lot of damage, but you could at least cut them, maybe deter them, I don't know. You could, as I showed you in part 2, you could use this to carve yourself little fish hooks, like I showed you in part 2. You can use it to do small whittling jobs like this. You can also, and the main intended use of it is as a fire starter. And this is a ferro rod, magnesium. So what you do is you scratch off that black layer and there's silver underneath. Once you get to the silver part, if you flick it really quickly, it will create sparks that will start a fire. So let me show you a demonstration of that. Let's see, right here. All right, so let's see a close-up of that. So you take the knife and you just flick it. All right, and then another demonstration is here, scratching off that black layer till you get to the silver layer and just keep flicking until you create enough sparks that create a fire. Now, I could show you demonstrations from now till the cows come home, and the only way you're really going to learn how to use one of these is to practice yourself. So if you don't want to practice with your bracelet, because this is pretty small and you don't want to deplete the entire ferro rod practicing, I would recommend buying another small ferro rod and practicing on it. That's what I do. I have another little ferro rod that I practice with, because all the demonstrations in the world are not going to show you personally how to start the fire. You have to practice it yourself to get the right wrist movement, to get the right holding movement. But I do have to say one thing about it is a lot of people, when they demonstrate it, they use the knife edge and they flick down into the tinder. And sometimes that can, depending on how stressed out you are or whatever, you can hit your tinder and then everything goes flying. So one way that I recommend doing it is to hold your knife in place and to pull your ferro rod back. And that seems to work better for me. You could also use the knife included in your kit as the fire steel starter. So that will also work. All right, that's the bracelet. Now let's move to the cord lock. Okay, so included in the whole kit is this piece of elastic and a cord lock. And if you remember seeing the tin all together, the cord lock and the elastic and the paracord bracelet are holding the tin closed. So I'm including the cord lock specifically for people who don't know how to tie knots, like, a simple knot. Some people just don't know how to do it, And what I would do, well, anyways, like if you don't know how to tie a knot, this will help you to secure things that you need to do without knowing how to do that, without knowing how to tie a knot. So here's an example. Okay, so let's say that you're trying to put up your shelter with the emergency blanket and you're trying to tie that first corner to a tree, but you don't know how to tie a constrictor knot. So what this is going to do is help you to connect it to, just by doing a loop knot around the corner of the blanket with a rock in it, and then put this part around a tree, and then you can just tighten it against the tree like that without having to know how to make a knot. And while you're working on survival, you can learn your knots later on, but this will at least get you started in case you're stranded and you don't know how to tie a knot. So that's one reason I'm including this cord lock. Another thing is the fact that all of these, the bracelet and the elastic and all that holds your tin together. I'm going to show you, I'm going to make a whole separate video on how to put this kit back together and how best to connect the elastic to the bracelet and connect it all back together. But so stay tuned for that in case you can't figure it out. But I'm going to show you how to put it all together with all this. But anyways, the cord lock is also another reason I'm including this, is because sometimes, especially in a survival situation, your jacket tends to get caught on things, and sometimes the cord lock on your hood pops off. So that's another reason I'm including a cord lock in your kit, is so that you have one so you can secure your hood. And that's really important if it's cold out, because if your hood is not tied tightly, then it gets really cold on your neck and you can get sick. So that's another reason I'm including a cord lock. All right, the next thing I'm including is this piece of elastic. So it's, as I said before, it's 12 inches long, but it stretches to about 30 inches and it's about 8 millimeters wide. And so the first order of business for me, if I'm in a survival situation, I have long hair. So I'm going to need to tie my hair up. And let's say I don't know how to make a knot to turn the whole thing into a hair tie. I can just put this cord lock on there and I can tie my hair up like this. You can also use it to make a tourniquet, you know, and you can use the cord lock to do that. You could also find a stick or something. Well, let's just say that you do know how to tie a knot. So if you tie a knot in the end here, you can make a hair tie that way. You could also use this as a slingshot. So let's see if I can do this. This is not a good one, but you can use it to make a slingshot. Find a stick that's Y-shaped and you can tie either end to it and you can make a slingshot. That's good for killing small animals, you know, like squirrels or whatever, and then you will have a meat source. Okay, obviously the elastic keeps the tin together. I showed you in the first video that you can take your LED light and you can attach it to your elastic and you can create yourself a headlamp, which is really cool. So you just tie that around your head. All right, now coming to the linen, you can use the elastic coupled with your linen. If it's really hot out, you can fold this over the elastic and tie this around your head and make a little makeshift sweatband. You could also, if you get a cut on your arm, you can use the linen as a bandage and tie the elastic around it. You could also, at night, I need to have darkness for me to sleep well. You could turn this into an eye mask for sleeping. So that's all the main uses for this elastic. So let's move now to the linen. And the reason that I'm including linen versus another fabric is for the fact that you can make bandages out of it. Linen is well known to be a healing fabric. So if you get a cut or whatever, if you haven't put any band-aids of your own in this kit, you could use this double-sided adhesive and cut a little piece off of the linen and make yourself a band-aid. So that's useful. You could also use it as your first layer of water filtration. So using the lid, gather water up and pour it in and use this linen as a filter. It's not going to filter microbes and bacteria, but it will filter the majority of the trash out of your water before you boil it to disinfect it. So you can use this as a water filter, or the first level of water filtration. You can also, if you wear glasses, you can use this as a glasses cleaner, provided you haven't used it for anything else. I have it included in the kit specifically to protect the Fresnel lens in the top and the signal mirror to keep it from getting scratched. So that's part of the reason it's in the kit to begin with. Let's see what else. Oh, you could also use it if you're out of tinder. It is very flammable. So you can take your knife and cut off little shreds of it to create some tinder to start a fire. You could also use it as a small towel. So obviously you can't dry your whole body with it, but you could dry off certain things with this. And if your nose is running, you could use this as a tissue. Now, keep in mind that if you've used it as a towel or a tissue, then it's no longer sanitary. So if you would like to sanitize it, what you'll need to do is get some water in the lid and put it over the fire and wait for the water to boil. And when it boils, stick this in and let it boil for a little while longer, and then take it out and let it dry. Now that's not a perfect situation and it might look dirty, but if you boil it and hang it to dry, it should be sanitary enough to use for a Band-Aid. Okay, so again, it's not a perfect situation, but it's a survival situation, and it will work if you use it correctly. All right, and then last little thing here, I kind of briefly showed you, you can use the double-sided adhesive in conjunction with the linen to make Band-Aids. You can also use your knife and cut it into smaller pieces, like if you happen to use the double-sided Velcro and you need to stick your headlamp onto something, you can use the adhesive for whatever you need to stick things to. The reason I have it in the top of the kit, again, is because it's slightly foamy and it offers a little bit of protection for some of these more delicate items on top, like the Fresnel lens and the mirror. So it adds a little bit of a buffer inside the kit itself. All right, so that was part 3, and that was a lot of the items in this kit. Please come back for part 4, and I will finish out all the rest of the items in this kit and how to use them together. And in part 5, I'm going to talk to you about the things I haven't included and why, and also where you can go to create your own kit. So keep in mind that these are for sale on eBay, but if you don't want to buy mine, I will show you where you can go to create your own and get the same little items or something similar. So stay tuned for these next couple of videos, and I hope they have a great day. Thanks for watching.